Can you all see that? Is that okay?
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so yep, I'm Isobel and I am a PhD student and I'm studying gravitational wave astrophysics, so things to do with black holes, which is obviously what I'm standing in front of right now. And I do that at Monash University, so in Melbourne, nice and close to Mount Burnett. But today I'm going to be deviating from my usual topic of study, and I'm going to be telling you about etymology, which is also known as the study of the origin and evolution of words. So this is quite a new field to me. I'm not an expert in this. This isn't like a long-standing hobby of mine. I've just been looking into it in all of the bountiful free time we all have at the moment. So I don't promise to be able to answer any questions that you might have about this, but hopefully we can have some interesting discussions if you do have questions, and maybe you can even teach me things. So this rather technical title, the etymology of the universe, I like to think of it as star words, which is much more exciting. So I found that researching for this presentation was very interesting, but also very time consuming because we use words all of the time. So once you start thinking about where they come from, it's very hard to stop. So to give you an idea of how interesting even everyday words can be, we can dive into where some of the words on this slide come from. So the word etymology comes from the Greek words for original meaning and the study of. There are lots of words that end with ology that we use every day. So things like biology, neurology, epidemiology, things that all refer to different fields of study. And names for people or places also have interesting roots. So my first name, Isobel, is the Scottish version of the Spanish Isabel, which evolved from the medieval name Elizabeth and has its roots in the Hebrew name Elisheba, which means God is my oath. The first half of my last name is a Spanish or Italian surname, meaning something like coming from Rome. So it might have referred to somebody who actually was from Rome, or somebody who had traveled there potentially on a pilgrimage. And the last half of my last name is Scottish, and it stems from an Old English word for copse or thicket, and is a name that would have been given to somebody who lived near the woods. So in its entirety, my full name means something like God-fearing woman from Rome who lives near the woods, which sadly is not a very accurate description of an atheist from England who lives in suburban Melbourne. So how about the words that make up my job description? The word astrophysics can be split into two parts, with the first part, astro, coming from the ancient Greek for aster, which just means a star. And this in itself stems from a word that is something like stir, which was the Proto IndoEuropean word for star. So this term, Proto IndoEuropean, will come up a few times in this talk. So I'll tell you what it means. Back in the late Neolithic and early Bronze Ages, the Proto Indo-European people are thought to have lived somewhere around what is modern day Ukraine. They then spread out into Europe and India, taking with them one common language, Proto Indo-European, which grew and evolved into the many European and Indian languages that we have today. So we're going to use the English word 100 as an example, so 100. The word 100 shares this Proto-Indo-European root word with loads of other languages. So this central word evolved through a number of stages into the modern word for 100 that we recognize today. So to warn you, a lot of words are about to appear on the screen. I don't expect you to read all of them. And the English word for 100 is just up here in the top left. So Proto-Indo-European root words are theorized by linguists and etymologists who are experts in the way that words evolve. And these experts look for ways to link our modern words for things in different Indian and European languages back to one common source. So lots of the words that I will talk about today can be traced all the way back to their Indo-European roots. For example, going back to the word astrophysics, the second half, physics, can be traced through its Latin and Greek evolution as physica, meaning natural things, back to its more primitive roots as a word related to making things grow, like a farmer might. Ta physica, meaning something like the natural things, was also the name of Aristotle's treatise on nature. And then the word student can also be traced back to a Proto-Indo-European root, meaning to push or to beat, which brings up some nice imagery of beating knowledge into your brain as you study. And what about the word universe? Well, we're actually going to build up to that over the course of this talk. But for now, let's start our exploration of the word universe from the very place that all of our explorations of the universe have begun, which is our home on the planet Earth. So the Earth wasn't always thought of as an astrophysical entity, which explains why our word for the Earth is the same as our word for the ground or the soil. This is how us humans have known the Earth for most of our time here, as the soil that allows us to grow food and survive. There are other words for figures that have been goddesses of the Earth or guardians of soil and agriculture, like the Roman Terra, the Greek Gaia, and the Norse figure Jord. And these are the roots of some words that are related to the Earth today. For example, the word terrestrial for something that comes from the Earth, and geology for the study of the Earth's substance. So let's just cover a little bit of history of human understanding of the Earth's place in the universe. So Earth was recognized as spherical by the end of the 5th century BC by Greek intellectuals, but it was believed to be the center of the universe until the 16th century. Before the 19th century, it was widely believed that the Earth was only a couple of thousand of years old. But in the 19th century, geologists proved that it was actually billions of years old. Way before we recognized the Earth as a planet, though, when we looked up to the sky from the ground, we noticed that we seemed to have some relatively nearby neighbors that differed from the background stars that we could see. For example, the big one was the sun. The sun has always been seen as extremely important in human civilization, since it seemed to dictate day and night, as well as the seasons, crops, harvests, and everything by which primitive humans lived their lives. The Proto IndoEuropean root of the word sun also evolved into another familiar word for things related to the sun, which is sol, which we use for things like the solar eclipse and the solar system. And Sol was also the name of the Roman god of the sun, Sol Invictus, or the unconquered sun. Another of our neighbors that we noticed pretty early on was the moon. Our word for the moon stems from a Proto-Indo-European word that meant month, as well as the measuring moon. So it was the moon that measured the length of the month. In fact, the very word measure is linked to this word for the moon. Another Proto-Indo-European word was used for the shining moon, which evolved into the Latin luna, which was the name of the Roman moon goddess, who was the sister of Sol Invictus. So this word luna is the root of many of the words that we use to talk about things relating to the moon, like the lunar eclipse, for example. So another thing that people looking up to the sky noticed was that some of the stars in the sky move differently to the others. And you have probably noticed these stars yourself looking up at the night sky. While most stars appear to move very slowly due to the rotation of the Earth and the Earth's movement around the sun, some appear to move much faster or in different directions, so they don't follow the crowd. And these are some other planets in our solar system. The word planet actually can't be traced all the way back to its Proto-Indo-European root, but we can see that the ancient Greek name for wandering evolved into our modern day word planet. And from Earth, we can see 5 planets with the naked eye: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. And each of these planets have names that derive from the names of Roman gods. So the innermost planet, Mercury, is named after Mercurius, the Roman god of travel, tricks, and commerce, who is known for his speed. Having the smallest orbit, Mercury is seen to move fastest across the sky, so quite logically, he was named after the fastest god. And this is also why the metal that we use in thermometers is called mercury or quicksilver. As a metal that's liquid at room temperature, it appears to be relatively fast moving. Mercurius's equivalents were the Greek Hermes and the Norse god Loki. And the name Mercurius derives from the Latin merx, which is originally from the Proto-Italic word merc, which was used to refer to goods and merchandise, which is actually where we get the word merchandise, and also words like merchant and markets. Another planet that we can see clearly in the night sky is Venus, which was the brightest planet in the sky and hence was named after the Roman goddess of love and beauty. So the Roman goddess Venus, who was famously very beautiful, was married to Vulcan, who was the god of the fire and the forge. And Vulcan was notoriously a very ugly god. And this seems quite appropriate to me, since we now know that the surface of Venus is completely inhospitable to life and is full of volcanoes and things. So the word Venus was the Latin word for romantic love and desire, stemming from the Proto IndoEuropean word meaning to strive for love. And interestingly, this root word is also the root word for things relating to winning, friendship, love, and hunting. The next planet, Mars, appeared to have a distinctively red hue in the sky, so was named after the Roman god of war. There's been an anthropomorphic personification of war for as far back as I could trace. The name Mars actually stems from an Oscan word, mammers, which also referred to a war god. So Oscan is an extinct Proto-Italic language native to southern Italy, which is known from inscriptions dating as far back as the 5th century BC. The later Latin word for Mars, mavors, is linked to words for cutting, turning, and male. Mars also has 2 small moons, which were discovered much later in the 19th century when we had telescopes. And these 2 small moons are named after the chariot horses of the Greek god of war, Ares. They're called Phobos, which means panic or fear, and Deimos, which means terror or dread. So that's all very nice. Very nice friendly names for those moons. So another planet that the Romans could see in the sky was Jupiter. And this was the largest planet they could see, so they named it after their king of the gods. And the equivalent Greek god to Jupiter is Zeus. And Zeus and Jupiter actually have the same Indo-European root word, meaning bright day sky or heaven. So that's the case for the first half of the word Jupiter, but the second half of the word Jupiter stems from the Proto-Italic word for father, making the whole word effectively sky father. And the word for father itself comes from the Proto-Indo-European words for protector or shepherd. So the 5th and final planet that the Romans could see in the sky was Saturn. Saturn was the slowest planet to cross the sky because it was the furthest away, so it has the longest orbit around the sun. And this might be why it was named after the Roman god of time, Saturnus, who is equivalent to the Greek Kronos and often depicted as a kind of old father time with a scythe. The god Saturn was also the god of agriculture, and his name stems from the Latin satis, meaning sufficient or plenty, and is also the root of our word satisfied. So just having 5 planets in the sky was all well and good until the 18th century, when along came William Herschel with his telescope and discovered a new planet, Uranus. By the way, the word telescope essentially means I look at something far away in ancient Greek. This word was coined in 1611 at a banquet where one of Galileo Galilei's instruments was presented. So Herschel was actually living in my hometown of Bath in the UK when he made the discovery of Uranus, and he is pictured here with his sister Caroline, who is making him a cup of tea while he polishes a telescope mirror. Caroline actually herself was an interesting character. She worked as Herschel's assistant, and King George III paid her £50 a year for this role, which made her the first woman to be given a salary as an astronomer. Caroline made many discoveries herself, mostly of comets. The word comet stems from the Greek word meaning long-haired, referencing the long tail of a shooting star. And just related to that, the word asteroid stems from the Greek for star-like. So back to Herschel. Herschel actually wanted to call his new planet Georgium Sidus, or George's star, after the King of England at the time, but this name didn't stick, largely because the French hated King George and wouldn't call it that. So eventually the name Uranus was proposed, and since it was thought to be in keeping with the other planets, which were also named after the ancient deities, the name stuck. However, you may have noticed that Uranus was in fact a Greek god, not a Roman god, which is kind of irritating for those of us who like everything to just have that one consistent theme. But there you go, what can you do? So Uranus was the ancient Greek king of the sky who was actually thought to be the sky, and he was married to Gaia, who was the Greek embodiment of the earth. And the word Uranus stems from the Indo-European root meaning to rain, making Uranus the rainmaker. The next planet to be discovered by telescope was Neptune in 1846, and it was named after the Roman god of the sea due to its bright blue color. The root of the name Neptune is widely disputed and unclear, having links to words like nuptus, meaning veiling, and related to words like nuptial, potentially relating to the marriage of the sky and the sea. It's also linked to an Indo-European word meaning damp or fog, which is linked to the word neptu, meaning something like something that is moist. And given the adjectival form neptuno, which means he who is moist, this sounds a lot like Neptune. However, the word is also linked to the root of the word nephew, which is thought to relate to various stories and myths where sea deities are born out of the waves. So the etymology of the word Neptune is kind of contentious. And finally, for the planets, a planet that was identified in 1930 and then unidentified in 2006, Pluto. Pluto was named by an 11-year-old girl from England called Venetia Burney. The name Pluto was confirmed on May the 1st, 1930. So this is almost exactly 90 years ago. Venetia got £5 as an award for proposing the winning name, which was worth about £300 in those times, or 600 Australian dollars. Which is fitting because Pluto, or Pluton, was the Roman god of both the underworld and of wealth. This is Pluto looking very sad because he's not a planet anymore. So the fact that Pluto was the Roman god of both the underworld and of wealth isn't because money is inherently evil. You can make your case for that if you like, but precious metals and gems come from beneath the earth, so you might think of that as the underworld. So maybe it makes sense that Pluto, or Hades, would have been the guardian of valuable metals. And the word Pluton comes from the Proto Indo-European root word meaning to flow, and probably evolved into words meaning wealth and riches due to the concept of overflowing. So Pluto actually has 5 moons, the largest of which is Charon. Charon is about half the size of Pluto and is named after the Greek mythological ferryman who would ferry the dead across the river Styx to the underworld. And another one of Pluto's moons is actually called Styx. The others are named Nyx, after the Greek goddess of darkness and the mother of Charon. One of them is called Kerberos, after the 3-headed dog that guarded the Greek underworld. And the last one is called Hydra, who was the 9-headed serpent that battles Hercules in Greek mythology. So once we had telescopes, we could start observing and naming things in the universe that we hadn't been able to resolve previously, like nebulae. The word nebula derives from the Latin for mist or cloud, and in the 1600s, the word nebula was used in the English language to refer to a cloudy speck or film on the eye that caused vision problems. It was first applied to great interstellar clouds of gas and dust in the early 1700s. And you can kind of imagine how this word could easily evolve from meaning a cloudy speck on the eye to a cloudy speck in a telescope, which would turn out to actually be a gigantic cloud of interstellar gas and dust. So in addition to all of the bright specks that we see in the night sky, we know that some of those bright specks aren't actually single stars, but they're whole galaxies like our own, the Milky Way. And actually the word galaxius in Latin was used to refer to the Milky Way itself, stemming from the Greek words for milky, galaxius, and circle or cycle, kaiklos. The Greek word galactos actually just means milk. I typed this into Google Translate to check. And it's also the root of our word for the sugar that's found in milk, lactose. So this word stems from the Proto-Indo-European word for milk, which was galag. And I think this is quite nice because it means that all of the other galaxies that we look at and we talk about as galaxies, their name stems from how we think our own galaxy looks, like a river of milk running across the dark night sky. Okay, so finally we've reached the end of our short trip through some of the words that we use to describe the universe. And here is the grand finale, the word universe itself. So the word universe evolved from the Latin word universus, meaning all things turned into one thing. And the word uni stems from words meaning one and unique. The second half of the word means turned into, from the original Proto-Indo-European words for turn or bend. The word versus also means a line of writing. And the old French verse, as well as the English verse, mean a line of song. So universe might be translated as written into one or sung into one. And I think this is quite poetic, as humans have always sought to describe and record the world that they see around them in their language. So in some sense, the word universe might also be used to describe the entirety of human language, as it records everything that we know about everything that we discover as we evolve. And I think that's it. So thank you very much for listening. I hope this was insightful to you in some way. And I'll take any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Isobel. Bit hard to pause over the video.
Yes, I think you can. Anyone can just unmute themselves. If they can't, just stick up your hand and I'll unmute you. If you're not, if you don't have the power. Well, that was a wonderful talk, and it's quite different from all the ones that we've had so far. I think it's a great perspective on things.
Yeah, I had a question about the pronunciation of Pluto's largest moon.
Mm-hmm.
I always thought we were supposed to say it Sharon to honour the discoverer's wife. I know technically it should be with the hard kit sound, but I just noticed you were saying it as Karen, which I know is technically correct, but I thought we were supposed to say Sharon to honour the wife.
I honestly have no idea.
Okay.
I thought she was called Caroline, though.
No,
I don't
know. My understanding of her name is Sharon, and so he was sneakily trying to get her name in there and say, oh yes, we know it should be Karen, but let's call it Sharon because I want to, be nice to my wife.
Okay, well noted. Sharon is the name.
Any other questions? Kim. Oh, go on, Stuart.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say I really like the cute little miniatures directing us through the PowerPoint.
Thank you. They actually came about because I originally had just lots of images of these gods that I found on Google. And then I was informed that this might be a copyright issue. And even though I'd credited all of the authors, apparently you also have to ask them all individually for written consent or something. And anyway, it was too much hassle, so I just made them all instead.
Nice.
Can I ask about that picture of the universe? Because I haven't seen that one before. Do you know much about that one?
Yeah, I can. So I have, I'll just share my screen again, but I have all of the links to all of the images that I did use. So these are all ones that are under Creative Commons open licenses. So this is by somebody called Pablo Carlos Budassi, probably pronouncing that wrong as well. But I can copy and paste, oh, this was an extra slide. I can copy and paste this.
Oh yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah. Into the chat. Can I do that?
Yes.
Let's just try and do that.
So for those who joined late, Raki and Michael, we have recorded this, so we'll put it up a bit later on, so you can catch up on what you missed. Any other questions? Yeah. Yep. Saskia.
Now, Isobel, you said you got interested in this topic recently. So is this a COVID-19 sidetrack topic, or have you always been interested in this?
It's kind of both. So I've always been interested in words and language and English literature and language. But recently I've been reading some books on the development of humans. So I read a book called The Incredible Human Journey, I think, by Dr. Alice Roberts. And So that talks about the development of humans. And then I also read a book called The Art Instinct, which is about the evolution of like human psychology, so evolutionary human psychology is kind of a debatable topic anyway, and not everyone believes in it, but that was kind of interesting to see how like human culture evolved. And then I guess I kind of just started thinking about how it applies to space and that kind of thing. And I think I just came across the fact about the word for galaxy coming from the Greek word for milk, like by accident, and then that just made me start thinking about everything else as well, because I thought that was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
There's quite an Arabic influence on some star names as well. So it was really interesting to see that this is all quite separate from that. So, yeah.
What are those Arabic influenced star names?
Anything that begins with AL is Arabic. So,
okay.
Yep. So I could defer to Jackie on this. He can come up with a few Arabic names.
Belt in Orion, Alan Carr, is it? Or
yep.
Jackie, you're on mute. Jackie, you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry, Aldebaran, Algol, of course it all goes out of my head now.
Yeah, that's right. It's the same with here, mate, but anything that begins with AL is a...
Alnatak, that's it. Alnatak,
yeah.
Alnalam, and Mintaka in the belt, yeah.
Yeah.
And of course Betelgeuse, which is really mangled Arabic, so yeah.
Isn't the reason why we do have a lot of those star names in Arabic because there was like a jump in translation for a lot of stars that were discovered originally from Greek into, or maybe from like Latin original derivations. Then they went into Arabic and then they went back into English. And so there was a jump that they were originally...
Yeah, when the Arabs kept them during the Dark Ages, and then they were picked up again in the Renaissance.
And they got translated back again, yeah.
Yeah,
I thought that
well,
was
you got to look at Sirius. I mean, that's got the US ending, which is Latin, and I mean, it's supposed to be a Greek name, but it's in Latin, and yeah, it's all a bit weird. Yeah.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, you can go down a really big rabbit hole with the star names, and there's still some arguments I think over some of them. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that I did find really hard while I was researching for this presentation was just not going down all of the available rabbit holes, because once you start like Googling every other word that comes up on your computer screen, it's just such a time sink.
Yeah, and there is some cultural differences in the way I think some of the names are said too. Like we, I'm trying to think which names we say differently here. Because I know there's an argument between Cassiopeia or Cassiopeia or something like that. I'm trying to think what we say differently down here. Oh. Can't think now. No, it's gone.
Wonderful. I mean, that was a really some of those slides too. It was like so well structured. It was great. Wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Do you think you'll go further with this, researching names, or is that it for you for this chat?
I would like to kind of build it into something else. So I know that, so I gave this talk to like an Ozgraph public outreach audience. And one of the things that came out of that was that we want to turn these little pictures of planets into like stickers to take to schools to give out to kids. So potentially if we're taking the stickers out, I could turn it into some kind of outreach talk for kids. And then I was thinking I could turn it into like a small book or something for kids to teach them about the names of planets and how those evolve. I would like to do something more with it. I think it would be cool.
Yeah, kids often ask why the Earth is called the Earth, because it doesn't really fit in with all the other names. So that's one that often a question that often turns up and sort of like, oh no, it's just the Earth.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's a great way to find common ground for kids who've got an interest in science and those that are interested in language and English.
That's a good point.
I don't know whether kids are sort of interested in their language. I find that an adult thing. I mean, I find it really fascinating, but and I sort of talk about it, but I don't know whether kids pick it up or what age kids sort of make that connection.
Definitely the older ones, because it is taught not very much, but as a VCE subject.
Oh, okay.
English language, it's taught at very few schools. Most of them go for just straight English or literature, but there is that third option.
Yeah, I don't think the primary school kids quite make that connection, though. I think even though you can talk about it, but it still goes over their head, and the connection doesn't quite get made until they get a bit older. Yeah.
I suppose the other sort of aspect of interest for younger, well, for anybody really, for me as well personally, is the ties with the mythology. Because I've always, you know, and even looking at it sort of from a more heretic perspective of astrology, which is the study of stars. And yeah, it's interesting how it has ties with the classical Greek mythology or Roman mythology as well, and Arabic and Chinese. And then they sort of all relate to that, but really all that relation is just a name. And you know, where do the names come from, and why are they attributed to those planets or stars or whatever it is, compared to anything else? Yeah, and I suppose it's kind of interesting when you look at names like, you know, the moons of Pluto, for example, and they're all named after something relating to Pluto or relating to Hades, all about the underworld. And then you look at Mars, and then its moons are just named after, you know, this event, this impending doom of these little rocks flying around a planet. They're just eventually going to pummel into it. So it just completely different takes on the same type of name origins just from mythology.
I found the Mercury ones interesting, and the thought that occurred to me is that the periodic table element, the symbol is Hg, and I was trying to remember the name that it's shortened from, but I was really interested to see. I couldn't believe that I hadn't seen, like, because I thought, oh, I'm supposed to know. I thought I knew all that stuff where the links came from, but I hadn't seen those derivations of merchants and things like that. And I knew Mercury was connected to commerce, but that seeing the derivations of how you get merchants and markets and that out of it, I thought was really interesting. I think that's something most people would relate to. Yeah, the periodic table, the Hg, because it's a long name and I keep forgetting it. Might be interesting one to add in there.
Is it related to Mercury? Like the name?
Yeah.
Just Googling it quickly.
I have to. Yeah.
Ah, that's so interesting. So it says the symbol Hg that Mercury is known by comes from its Greek name, Hydrargyrum, terrible pronunciation, which means liquid silver.
Ah, quicksilver. Ah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah.
Oh, so it's a totally different sort of.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
I'm going to add that to this slide.
I think we should actually add this to a future topic. Yeah, because we do love to hear from you again, Isobel.
Yeah, I would love to come and speak some more. I would love to have the excuse like to look into it more.
Yeah, and probably hopefully we can meet in person again.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, I think I missed your first talk.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Will you be able to have like physical meetings again soon? Because you're allowed to have a certain number of people in an enclosed space now, aren't you?
Cabin's pretty small, so.
And now it's all sealed up.
Yeah. We're debating this at committee level, and we're trying to make it safe. As I think Jackie pointed out, it's a cabin. It wasn't built for a pandemic. So, yeah, we've got a lot of elderly members and a lot of young members, and some members that are immune compromised. So we really are trying to make it safe at the moment. So at the moment, we just said we'll stay closed until we can work out details. So whether that be having it at MBO or at an alternative venue less frequently. So yeah, it's still a bit uncertain at this stage. So, but hopefully we can resolve this and invite you back in person.
Yeah, I would love to come back.
Were there any more questions? Well, completely blown away by Isobel's talk.
I was just happy to sort of see somebody else pronouncing a lot of the words, particularly the ones with the AE correctly.
You think I did them right? That's good. That's a relief.
Yeah. I agree with you, Isobel, with the pronunciation for Charon, but I also understand that not everything is derived from mythology, so there are some other more sort of concurrent ties with that name. It is very interesting. Very interesting.
So the argument for that is if you are going to be really technically correct, apparently things like cetus and cetaceans should be said with a hard K as well.
Yeah,
so you should,
like
so whales are all cetaceans, and we just don't call them that. They're cetaceans with a soft C. So you don't have to get really technical.
This brings back lots of memories of A-level English language. So yeah.
Can I just chime in with a comment? Apparently, when you order a panini, you should order a panino, because that's the singular. Panini is multiple.
That's right. Yeah. And it's you look at those little I don't know what you would call it, but there's these little additions that you have in Italian, whether something's big, small, male, female, and there's a lot of words where it in English, obviously just in English when it gets translated, it just doesn't work. So you kind of look like a bit of an idiot anyway.
Yeah, my Latin teacher had a very funny story about that, about a lady trying to say she was Australian, and she kept going, Australiano, Australiano, and the Italians thought, she's mad, why is she saying she's male? Because the O is a male ending, and she should have been saying Australiana, I'm an Australian woman. And,
it's quite funny.
Yes, there's lots of little things.
Now, Kim, now you're the expert with Zoom and breakout rooms. You're the self-proclaimed expert with Zoom and breakout rooms. So.
I don't have access to controlling breakout rooms. I think James has got that because he's the host.
Okay, because I think
it's James.
Okay, because I think we've got
co-hosts don't get it.
Oh, okay. So it's all James.
So what I might do, I might actually stop the recording here just so we can do the breakout rooms once James comes back. Hang on, stopping.